Hello YouTube, this is Carlos the Rook. I'm bringing to you round one from the World Open 2025, which was done in Philadelphia. First, let me give you a brief history of my chess career. I started playing chess at the age of 9 years old in Chicago at an off the street club, and then from there we used to play in the barbershops, parks, and wherever we can get a game going. So I've been playing for over 40 years, off and on. I just came out of retirement last year after an 8 year hiatus. So I played 1 year full and I'm going into my second year strong, studying and preparing, and this is the road to 2000. When I came out of retirement, I was roughly at 1553 USCF rating. I went all the way up to 1847 USCF, and I dropped to 1810 right before the tournament started. Now, when the tournament started, I initially enrolled for the under 1800 section because my rating was 1636. But because I won three tournaments, I shot all the way up to 1847, and they bumped me up to the under 2000 section, which was way rougher than I should have been playing if I wouldn't have won those other tournaments. All right, here we go. Round one. It's Carlos the Rook against Tom Weedman. I'm rated 1810. Tom is 1958. So I start off the game with e4. Tom responds d5, which is a Scandinavian defense. E captures d5. I have prep for queen captures d5. I have several lines of opening prep for that, but I really didn't have any prep for knight to f6, which is a sideline. So I go d4, knight captures d5, c4, knight goes back to f6. And here I figured like it was a similar to Queen's Gambit structure, and the knight could come out to c3 here, or the knight can go to f3, where it stops black from responding with an e5, which is similar to the Budapest Gambit. And if black was to go to e6 with bishop b4 ideas, then it'd be similar to Nimzo Indian. So I didn't go with my first mind, and I went knight c3. Tom did go e5, and initially I thought maybe d5, but then e4, and that pawn would restrict my knight from coming to f3, and I thought that was pretty bad. So I captured the pawn, which turned out to be the correct move. Tom captured back the queen. Queen captures d1. Now, my first instinct was to capture the queen back with the knight, and then I could bring the knight back to c3 or bring the knight to e3 and go on that way. But I thought I was going to be slick. I figured if I capture with the king, the knight has to retreat to d7. Then my knight can come to b5, threatening the fork on c7. And then his knight will have to come to a6 to block it. And then I figured I have him boxed in and I can develop and initiate an attack. What I missed was his next move, which was knight g4. So with knight g4, he's threatening to fork me on f2, and he's threatening my pawn on e5. So he gets his pawn back, and my king has to move if I want to protect this way. So in order to keep my king from moving again and losing another tempo, I decided I was going to develop my bishop. If he take the bishop, I'll capture back. Now I had doubled up pawns, but he wouldn't get the pawn back. So I still be up a pawn. I lost my castle rights, but I figured that way I could salvage the position. But he wasn't having none of that. He took the pawn. So I went h3 in order to stop him from coming back to g4. But the engine wants me to go bishop f4. And I thought bishop f4, I considered it during the game. But I said bishop f4, he go back, knight g4. Then my king is stepping over to e1 anyway. And I wanted to manually cross castle my king via c2 and then rook d1, king b1. I figured I'd have king safety that way. So that's why I didn't go for the bishop f4, which the engine wants, f6, and knight f3. This is what Stockfish wants. So Tom responded with bishop e6, hitting my pawn on c4. b3 protects the pawn. He brings his other knight out, developing it. And the idea is to cross castle with check on the king. Now, I thought about stepping the king over to c2, but I figured I wanted to go a3 and stop his knight or his bishop from coming into b4 and putting pressure on my knight on c3. Tom cross castles with check, king to c2. He goes bishop to e7, developing his bishop, trying to get all his pieces into the game. Now here, the entrance wants me to go g4, and I consider g4 in order to stop bishop f5. But I had came up with a different idea, bishop e2, with the idea of knight to f3 and trading that knight off and getting my bishop to f3, and then bringing a rook on e1 and another rook on d1, and I figure from there I can equalize. Tom go bishop f5 check, which shows why I should have went g4 to stop that. I slide the king over to b2, bishop f6. I calculated all this out. And here's knight to f3 carrying out my idea. Now here, instead of knight to f3, the engine wants g4 again. With knight to d3, bishop captures on c3, king captures c3, rook captures d3, and king back to b2. And it has black up in its position 3.43. So instead of capturing the knight, because this is not checkers, he doesn't have to capture. He goes knight to d3, checking me. I capture the knight, giving up the bishop pair. Now he captures with the rook. I did not even look at the rook capturing. I thought he was capturing back with the bishop. Now with the rook, he's threatening to take my knight on c3 because it's getting hit from the rook and with his bishop on the dark squares. So I bring the rook over from c1, protecting. He double up his rooks. So I decided, okay, he got his rooks doubled up. We done traded off a minor piece. I need to break this pin. I need to find some way to break this pin so I can get out of trouble. So I came up with knight to e1 hitting the rook. And my idea was he had to move that rook out, and then I could step my king over, and I can always bring my knight back to f3 and bring the other rook out. But he didn't do what I expected him to do. He used a tactic here. He captured my rook. I take back, and now I'm on a pin. On this dark square diagonal, the bishop is pinning the rook. So he drops the rook to d1, which was a powerful move. Because now my other rook can't get in the game. My knight is stuck right here. Because if I move it, I lose the rook on h1. So, and what he's threatening is to bring the rook to b1, check. I step over, rook captures c3 with the threat of rook to a1 mate. So I figured the only way to stop it was bishop c1. Now he come in with knight d4, and his idea is knight to e2. And that way, he's threatening the rook on c3 and the bishop on c1, which is a brutal move. So desperate times calls for desperate measures. So I went to g4, throwing a Hail Mary, hoping I could somehow come up out of this. He went knight e2 anyway, with a double attack on the two different pieces. I captured on f5. He captured on c1. And now the rook falls. There's no way I can protect the rook. And I resigned here. And there was a brutal loss in round one, dashing my high hopes of making an excellent run in this tournament. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. This is Everything Chess with Carlos the Rook. Thank you.